discuss this very important topic, we also have a very important presentation which we need to make. Each year, AIMA confers its Honorary Life Fellowship on the immediate past president of AIMA. Today, it is a pleasure to induct Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia, Chairman, Ambuja Neotia Group, as an Honorary Life Fellow of AIMA. We have a short AV and citation as part of the fellowship. We are happy to present the same. We thank Mr. Neotia, who has recorded his acceptance speech
Honorary
yesterday
Life
for us.
Fellowship 2020 on Harshavardhan Neotia. An outstanding entrepreneur and business leader, he has built a conglomerate with presence across real estate, hospitality, healthcare, and education. A celebrated innovator in the housing sector, he has been honored with Padma Shri by the Government of India for his work on social housing. He was also awarded Doctor of Literature honoris causa by the Vidyasagar University. A committed philanthropist, he has founded Neotia Healthcare, a chain of hospitals, and Neotia University, an institute of excellence in higher education. He has also been on the boards of IIM Kolkata and IIT Kharagpur. As president of All India Management Association during 2018 and 19, he provided excellent leadership to India's management movement. During his tenure, AIMA strengthened its management education, research, and leadership development portfolios. Under his direction, AIMA cemented its position as the management thought leader in the country and overseas. AIMA launched new programs and products under his watch. These included an AI and Big Data retreat and BizLab, India's first online business simulation platform. Under his leadership, AIMA strengthened its international portfolio by adding new locations for its Global Advanced Management Program. He reinforced AIMA's focus on research, and AIMA undertook several outstanding studies in partnership with global consulting firms and the Government of India, while adding new specialities to its short management courses. All India Management Association is pleased to confer the Honorary Life Fellowship on Mr. Harshavardhan Neotia, past President AIMA, for his extraordinary contribution to the organization. May we now request Mr. Neotia to say a few words.
Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji, President Kirloskar, Sunil bhai, Harsh, Rekha, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor and privilege to receive the Life Honorary Fellowship from AIMA. It has been a great privilege to serve this great organization as president last year. I must confess that I was able to get the support of everyone, our past presidents, council members, eminent ministers during my term. And fortunately, I was able to complete the term just before this pandemic hit. I must certainly compliment President Kirloskar for navigating AIMA through these very, very challenging times. And not only that, he has really taken AIMA to new levels and navigated it through all these turbulences with aplomb. So congratulations, President. Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji, you have been a great visionary, and right through the pandemic, you have shown exemplary leadership in ensuring that the supplies to the remotest corners of our country remain unaffected. Later on, you introduced the Shramik special trains to move people. We all know that the railways is the backbone of India, and your leadership of the railways has been very, very special, particularly in these very difficult times of the pandemic. I wish you all the very best and do hope that we continue to get your guidance and support. And we also thank you very much for your support to AIMA. I wish to conclude by thanking everyone once again, particularly Rekha and the Secretariat for the excellent support they provided to me. And I do hope to continue to be associated with AIMA and its activities over the years. Thank you very much for bestowing this honor.
Thank you, Mr. Neotia. We'll certainly convey your message to the Honorable Minister also. But now over to Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, who is going to moderate this fantastic panel. Over to you, Mr. Munjal.
Thank you. Thank you, Rekha. And thank you for giving me the chance to have this conversation with an outstanding panel. So the subject for today is Atmanirbhar India. Why is there a need for us to launch this initiative? Is a question I have for part of the panel members. I'd also like to then look at the contours of what it is we mean when we say we want to be self-reliant. What kind of self-reliance are we talking about? Is this reliance on India while working with the world? Or is it India taking a step back? Or interestingly, as some have implied, it's India actually taking a step forward. So I think it'll be interesting to ask these outstanding individuals what they think about the subject. Let me start with you, Mohan. Why is there a need for this kind of an announcement today, you think?
I think the pandemic has exposed the world's dependence on China, and it has seen that over the years, a lot of the global trade is dominated by China. The supply chains go to China, and what China decides will impact the entire world. 92% of some medicine of the United States was in China, etc. And China has now become a hegemon, and using its economic and military power in the South China Sea, it is trying to rattle its swords in the Himalayas and trying to build a belt and road initiative all across to get in raw material and create their own global supply chain. Now, all that is worrying the world. That led to the US having a trade dispute. And then when the world realized it, the world decided that we must move away from China and diversify our supply base to make sure that we are not exposed to a great risk with one single country. And this is the right moment when India also discovered that over the last 10 years, we had a $500 billion trade hole with China. China creates barriers for our exports. Chinese come and try to dominate our markets by dumping, by giving subsidies, etc. And the government has been helpless to start that. So I think the Prime Minister and the political establishment decided this is the right time to make sure that we focus on incentivizing our industry, creating scale for our industry, reducing the supply chain costs, making sure we get the technology to become a global supplier. With people moving away from China, going to other countries, we should get our share. And the entire world was an alternate place. It's the right moment to do it. And that's why I think Prime Minister came out with this Atmanirbhar program. And I think it's very, very good. One last point to Sunil. China has told the world very clearly that if you want to have good manufacturing, you must become a contract manufacturer. Because when you become a contract manufacturer, you manufacture for all the global brands and you sell and you create scale, you know technology, you get jobs, you reduce the cost, and you become very dominating power. Now the Chinese brands are dominating. So this strategy is to become a manufacturing center, manufacture for the entire world and for India.
So thank you. Harsh, what do you think should be done to not turn it into only an anti-China strategy?
Sunil, I think you raised a very key question. Because when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a lot of people, at the first instance or even now, think of it as becoming more insular and therefore going back to the quote unquote self-reliance era we had in the 60s and 70s.
When we had import substitution
Exactly.
as the theme.
Actually, it's interesting for a lot of our viewers and delegates who might have watched the immediately preceding session with Martin Wolf and Rajdeep Sardesai. And Martin Wolf was talking about this very clearly, saying that India should not sever trade relations. Now, I think, Sunil, there was misuse of some of the trade agreements that we had entered into in the past. And the general feeling, and not just a feeling, the reality on the ground was that India gave more access to its markets than gained with those countries. But I think we have learned from the experience. So the answer is not to not have trade and relationships with other countries, but is to structure it appropriately, or I dare say cleverly, wherein both partners are able to benefit. India is able to get market access and build on its strengths, while we are able to get benefit of the supply chain that is being offered by those countries or their producers, so that we can be on a greater development path. So we need to, as the implicit question you're raising is, we need to structure this very thoughtfully, and we need to do this in a manner that we strengthen domestic manufacturing, we strengthen domestic capabilities, and at the same time take advantage of what the globe offers. And one last small point, if I may say, we need to use this opportunity, not only the Atmanirbhar, but the real COVID crisis, to propel us into a 1991 2.0. That means use this opportunity to
Yeah.
bring major reforms, which will.
Okay, thank you. So we have 30 minutes 31 minutes from now for this session. I'm going to request each of you to keep your answers very sharp and very short, because I'd like to come around to you at least 2 times, if not more, so we can get more material, more meat out of this session. So CKR, tell me, which are the sectors you think in India which would benefit the most from this kind of an initiative?
I think the defense sector, as you all know, that is one of the biggest, large amount of imports are happening. I think that is one big sectors. I also feel that the digital sector is also one of the kind of this thing. The hardware sectors, quite a lot of them. I think we import quite a lot of hardware in the electronics, gadgets related things. That also would benefit a lot. Is my viewpoint. Also, I would like to add a point that if you look at the kind of exports what we make in the world market, I think it's peanuts. India's this thing, particularly barring the services, and ITS have saved us kind of thing. Remove that, I think our market share is very, very small, and that I think is a great opportunity for us. Is my viewpoint.
Yeah. Okay. President Kirloskar. Now let me turn the same question on its head. Which are the sectors you think the Indian system, the regulators, the government, the financial system, RBI, which are the ones they should encourage?
I think
Please note, there's a distinction between the two. Okay.
No, but I was going to answer that, manufacturing has huge potential. And that is one area of the economy that government of India has been attempting to take from 16% to 25% of our economy.
Yes.
And I believe that any part of manufacturing actually can be, can benefit from this if the rest of the environment supports it. I'll give the example of my own company. I mean, in the 1970s, we grew. Why are we an MNC today? Because my grandfather decided that he wanted to export to take care of the ups and downs of the domestic market. And we are seeing a huge down now. And he did that by getting into agreements with foreign companies. We learned a lot. And I think that is what we should be doing. We should see what are the areas that we can gain knowledge in, to improve ourselves, to understand what is going on outside, and to get into the foreign markets.
So, Mohan, let me ask you a question about the rural part of India. Most of India lives there. And when we speak about the economy, economic development, we are normally focused on things which are urban oriented. Our businesses, our industry, our consumption are usually focused on the urban areas. What do you think needs to be done to make the economy more dynamic and more resilient in the rural parts of India? Because despite such a large population living there, the economic value add there is very, very low right now.
Sunil, China gives an example. It started first with labor-intensive industries because China's greatest talent was labor. Now, there are two things you must do in the rural areas. India has got 7,000 small census towns. We must pick up 1,000 of them and have an urbanization program, because urbanization concentrates human activity. Constant human activity increase productivity and specialization. Increased productivity gives increased wages. That's point number one. Create facilities and then build infrastructure and bring in the labor-intensive industries. Why can't we have garments in North India, in UP and Bihar where there's surplus labor? Why can't we have light manufacturing in those particular areas? Why can't we have a toy industry there for export in those areas? Look at China. Among the top 10 exports of China,
So hang
six
on,
are made by
just go back there.
labor-intensive industries.
Hang on. Just go back there now. When you say why can't, that's an easy statement to make.
Yes.
How should it be done? What should actually be done to make it work?
Okay, let me say how it has to be done.
Let's drill down a little bit in pick any one area and drill down into how.
Yeah. Look, we have to create flatted factories and give it on rental to people who want labor-intensive industries to be set up in those areas, especially in the north of India where the surplus labor, so they don't have to spend too much money on capex. Second, I would strongly suggest a subsidy or incentive given that 2,000 rupees will be paid to them for every employee that they hire for 3 years. Provided they pay the minimum wages, etc., and that will reduce the labor cost, which is the time required for training. If we do these two things, infrastructure and give them some incentive for labor, people can go there and start investing, and that will create tremendous amount of jobs. People will get off the land, and that money going into the areas will create the buying power for those people and create many more jobs and industries. I think these are two big things that has to be done. Of course, the road network is coming, the railway network is coming, that is under play. But these two policy initiatives are necessary.
Right. So, Harsh, let me repeat that same question to you that I asked Sanjay. What do you think the system ought to do to actually make India self-reliant? Because we've all had issues with the system, with the regulation, with the infrastructure, the whole host of things that people have cribbed about, complained about, pushed back on. So if one was to make a quick transition now, because frankly, to be fair, over the last 50 years, a lot of work has been done. Last 30 years, even more has been done. Last 10 years, even more has been done. A lot of work has been done in many, many areas. So from where we are, which could be the quick drivers for this change?
I think, there aren't answers which will give us an immediate panacea necessarily. And these are things that Sunil, you and I have also been talking about the government. But if I was to pick some things, I think if we view whatever we do through the lens of trying to make Indian business, and as Sanjay said, Indian business, manufacturing business competitive, that would be one way to try and prioritize some of the things to do. So take regulation. Regulation requires simplification. I think the government recognizes that. And that is across things, whether we are talking in terms of corporate law, whether we are talking, as Mohan said, in terms of labor issues, whether we talk in terms of land reforms. Now, all of this is being done. It's not that it's not being done. But we need to hasten this. We need to put out, which the government is trying to do, put out task forces to do some of these things. Recently, I sat on one of the task force committees regarding ease of doing business. And I must say, I walked away being fairly impressed in the manner in which they are attempting to do this. Now we need to execute it. So therefore, I would say regulation and clearly looking at everything from a lens of competitiveness would be the way to go.
So CKR, so some of this that Harsh just said sounds self-evident. Okay? We should improve labor regulations. We should improve access to land. Cost of funding should go down. Availability of access to funding should be made available to more enterprises, especially the small enterprises, which is the backbone of our industry. How practical is it to expect that all of these can actually be done, and we start seeing a change and impact of this on the ground within the next 6 months to a year?
If you look at from 140 to 150% to come down from a level to ease of doing business to below 100, that itself has taken some 2 to 3 years time for us. And even I think we are inching. But making it a sweeping reforms, my viewpoint is 6 months to 12 months. I think it will be too much of an asking. I think
24 months?
I feel that 24 to 36 months is a reasonable time, is my viewpoint. There are too many departments, so many kind of these things. I think it's not just an easy kind of an ask. Also, I think one of the important thing that we need to do is ease of doing business. We need to go up the ranks. I think ideally below 25 itself is a great thing. I would not ask too much. But also equally, closing down the business is also important. Overseas investors who are coming down, if it doesn't work, they should go back up and go fast. And that is also an important thing that we should facilitate.
So let me just clarify one thing, CKR, for the benefit of the entire audience. That when you talk of the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings and ratings, these are done based on only 2 cities in India, only Delhi and Mumbai. They're not for all of India, by the way. And they're done on a limited criteria that they measure. Of course, we have improved, as I said earlier. But has enough happened is the question I was trying to probe, and that's the reason I was pushing you. I'm going to go to Sanjay with a similar thing again, because one of the things that India, when people talk of the problems in India, they used to talk of 2 or 3 things: excessive red tape, too much corruption, too much delay taking place, etc., and lack of physical infrastructure. These were the problems that they used to refer to when they talked about coming to India. Now, interestingly, if you look at this, these same problems are actually an opportunity. Infrastructure could be one of the largest ever investment opportunities for India. And as you keep improving on the red tape, corruption automatically tends to go down. At least the world has seen that. Do you think that would hold good for India as well?
Of course, I don't think we are any different from the rest of the world. We need to get more transparent, obviously. And the more jobs that we have, more infrastructure jobs, more manufacturing, more skilled people, more higher education levels, I think automatically transparency will increase and corruption should go down, red tape should go down, and things should improve.
So before coming to healthcare, Mohan, I'm going to talk to you about education. Sanjay raised a very important point about people's skills and their training. So vocational skills, training, education, in a sense, come into a similar bucket. And for the first time, the Indian system has started to recognize that. For a long time, many people in India have been saying, please look at vocations as a parallel stream to education or a part of education. And it was miles apart. Now, the new education policy has some absolutely dramatic changes, making the whole system much more real, accepting and aligning itself to the way the human brain works, not just forcing people to cram, but testing and acknowledging intelligence and smartness rather than your ability to cram. So, when do you think this can actually get implemented, where on the ground we can start seeing a breed of young Indians who think for themselves?
Sunil, about 5 years to see an output, minimum 5 years. There are 2 things that the government can do instantaneously. One, for the top 200 universities, make an announcement that all regulations of UGC are recommendatory and not mandatory. You give them autonomy, you free them, and then they will bring in the magic. Like your university can do so much, our university can do so much. And in the schools, for the top 25% of schools, based on performance in class 10 or 12, where the data is evident, let them free and tell them to manage without having too much of regulations, etc. These 2 things, if they're done, I think there'll be a dramatic improvement, because I've never seen this kind of enthusiasm in the educational field based on the new education policy. They will all change. Do these 2 things and show us what you care. One more point could be, put in 5,000 crores into the National Research Fund and say, we are going to keep this money and you can start giving research grants. You'll see a wave of innovation coming up.
So, Harsh, let me talk to you about the other social impact is on healthcare. With COVID being the way it actually is right now and the way it impacted the whole world, it made us all sit up and take note of where we are in our healthcare delivery, healthcare system, public health, the whole spectrum of the human health, both physical and mental, has come to the fore. We never even used to talk of mental health issues earlier. Now we are saying people are getting depressed, the suicide rate has gone up. You have a whole host of issues at this moment being discussed. Do you think, in all honesty, that India will find it fit to actually increase the budget to where it ought to be?
I think we need to. And as you said, the COVID.
No, need is clear, by the way. Now I'm asking the practical side.
No, I'm coming to the practical side. When I said we need to, it's not a desire, it's an imperative. Because the healthcare actually straddles several aspects. One is the aspect of the basic need for better health for a large part of our citizens who are still deprived. We are still looking at urban hospitals. Let's look at the healthcare facilities down in the rural areas, and we clearly know that there is a big void that needs to be filled. So it is a basic human need, whether you look at it from a human development index. But if we have healthy people, the recent report that was released, by the way, of the World Bank in terms of the human index, we are very, very low down. We are 100 plus. Yeah. And one of the reasons is it says that 49% of our human capital can only exploit, or we can exploit only 49% of the human capital from their productivity, from what they can do. So health clearly plays a very central role. Now, you asked me, how would we do this? I mean, it is pretty much the same debate as saying that we are talking in terms of saying we need to monetize our fiscal losses, print more money. This could be one area for which we'll have to do this. That's why I started by saying it's something that we need to do. Besides this, I think one more important part is that we are talking about jobs, which is a very serious issue. Healthcare has two sides to it. One is the hardware, the other is the service aspect of it, which is a huge employer, and the possibilities of creating jobs, much like education does. So if we are able to focus on the healthcare infrastructure, we are achieving both ends.
So interesting. Thank you. Let me ask you a slightly different question, Sikya. Now, for a long time, all the big brands that we saw globally. So if we are going to be self-reliant, we also therefore need to be naturally a global nation by ourselves and working along with others in collaboration, in partnership, supplementing their strengths, using them to supplement ours, etc. Now, if you think back for a long time, almost 150 years, all the global brands that we saw were only from Anglo-Saxon countries. And then for a short period after that, we got Japanese brands before some of the Koreans and now the Chinese came in. But what will it take? And we, by the way, still don't have a large number of brands which you could call as global brands coming out of India. There are a few, of course. Some Indian companies have done exceedingly well, but I'm not talking about a different aspect. What a brand stands for, as you know, is different from a company and a product and an experience and a service, all of that. It's everything put together. And if India wants to be self-reliant, India needs, therefore, to have the kind of consumption, the kind of relationship, the kind of connections with the brands, which are also Indian. How do you see that as a possibility of creating and getting more Indian brands feel and look like global brands?
I think it's very much possible. But what it calls for a big mindset shift. And my viewpoint is that a lot of Indians, we are fundamentally risk averse is one of the kind of this thing. We are not going up the value chain. You ask 100 people in business, would you like to take a safe bet of being a third-party manufacturer, contract manufacturer, or you would like to do something on your own? First choice would be, I would like to be safer, play on the safe side. The brand building is a bigger risk and bigger play, of course. Bigger money required, definitely. So I think that needs to be mastered. It calls for higher order management skill, understanding good marketing skill set, and going beyond multiple countries. Language doesn't matter, but I will master. And the way of doing things is very, very clear. So my viewpoint is many companies within our own country are struggling to make the products across India known. Few Indian companies are successful, but quite a lot of brands are only localized, only one state, two state, or one region specific. They are not able to go beyond, where multiple languages are there. You need to succeed. I think that calls for a higher order management skills, and also investment is what I would say. Above all, I think there is taking mindset. I'm here to play for long term. I think that's very.
Thank you. We have about 13 minutes to go. I have actually many things I'd like to ask you folks, but I also have a flood of questions that have come in from the audience. I've tried to pick on some of them and weave them into my questions, but I'll try and pick some of them specifically off this list itself. Sanjay, for you, is it not true that the whole world economy is too dependent on China, and it will be difficult to completely boycott them and still run our businesses, whether as customers, suppliers, intermediate goods suppliers, etc. We know even in API, for example, they come from China, even though India has the capability, but we've still been importing from China. So what's your view on that?
What Mohan said, that we have this opportunity.
Yep.
But, we also have to be very practical. I believe that it is possible if you make it your goal that you want to move away from China. It is possible to make things cheaper in India. You redesign the process, you innovate the products, make it suitable. You don't have that transportation cost. It is possible to do that, but on what scale? I don't know. Whether everyone can do it, I don't know. But anyone who tries and has the passion and the creativity will be able to do that. Because what did China do? Okay, China had certain advantages. They have slave labor, they have no cost of capital and things like that. But the other East Asian countries compete with China. And they compete with China well. So we'll have to find our own way. We may not be able to break off totally from China, but we can try.
So do you see small farmers getting helped in this initiative, Mohan?
Yes, I think small farmers will get help, Sunil, because of a very interesting thing. The problem is small farmers is they're not linked to market. They have to go through a huge supply chain and the middlemen eat away everything. If you buy onions today at 30 rupees, how much does the farmer get? 5 rupees. So now, Sunil, we have hundreds of agri-tech companies which are connecting farmers to markets. And farmers are getting 65, 70% of the final price. For example, Big Basket does about 600 crores a month. The total revenue of all these companies is 2,500 crores a month. Now we need to invest and accelerate and grow them, because using technology, by connecting farmers to market, improving supply chain, doing just-in-time harvesting, we can make sure they get more money. It's happening in Bangalore, it's happening in the bigger cities. It has to be done all over. So I think the great moment for small farmers with good government support and investment. We need more investment, Sunil.
Absolutely. I'm actually tempted to answer some of these questions myself, but I don't want to give up the chance to ask all of you these questions. So, Harsh, where do you think there's a role for startups? India only recently, oops, I think we've lost Harsh's connection. So, are you there, Harsh? I think we lost him. Okay. CKR, let me come to you. So, as you know, in the last few years, India has actively encouraged. So let me come back to you, Harsh. We lost you there for a minute.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah. So in the last few years, India has actively promoted, supported new startups. We are also starting to see some of them become successful. Some even get to be very large. But of course, there are tens of thousands of them which are little ones. They remain small and mid-sized companies. Many fail, etc. Where do you think they have a role in this new India that we are minting right now?
I think startups have a great role, because actually, if you ask me, all of this, the whole momentum has come where people are far more open to not just doing startup things. One is the thing that people want to try and work on their own, do new things, innovate, but even large businesses. Frankly speaking, today when we are looking at trying to do new things, or
I think we've lost him again.
We've lost him again. You want to take a shot at this, CKR?
Yeah, my viewpoint is that the startups play. So Harsh has come back. Harsh, you want to continue?
No, it's still not clear. You go ahead. Please go ahead.
They have a huge role to play in terms of this thing, firing the economy. And my viewpoint is that the startups, particularly, I think we need more of them, and it must start from schools and colleges. I think we should prepare them to go and start the business. The mindset should start there, then just, okay, you go and start working itself. And that failure is not fatal. I think there should be a dramatic change in the society's thing also. We require kind of this thing. I'm quite impressed with Bangalore and Mumbai, the kind of startup ecosystem they have created. I think every state, we need to create like that. And that will go a long way, is my viewpoint.
Right. Let me come back to you, Harsh. Do you think there is a role for the traditional skills, artisanal skills that India had? And what happens to India's arts and crafts and culture and dance and music in this race to build our economy into a global economy? Is there room and a role for any of this?
Sorry, my connection was playing Tron. I think Sunil, you were raising a question. You said that you didn't want to comment on things, but you're raising a question which is close to your heart. So let's get at it. I think there is a huge potential that exists. I think what we need to do is that there are two parts. One is encouragement through training and nurturing some of these things that we have, the traditional skills. But more importantly, is bringing them, particularly artisan things, bringing them to the market. The linkage is lost because they have become hyper local. So one is products and things that they do, bring them to the market, contemporize the offering. So instead of just offering a traditional wood-based product, make it something which is attractive in today's modern era to somebody who's a more contemporary. And the third is, as far as the performing arts are concerned, clearly use technology today to be able to broadcast it much more and popularize it through social media. So I think there are opportunities, but we need to do it that way.
So, Mohan, tell us, there are many new initiatives taking place in technology in places like Cambridge, in the Valley, in California, in Israel, etc. What can India hope to be the home of in terms of innovation and research and development as we move forward?
Two areas: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we can be the home of biotechnology. And I'll tell you why. In artificial intelligence, two steps below cutting edge, we dominate the world market. Our IT companies have trained more than 600,000 people in using AI for business, and they're doing it for the clients outside. What we need is to produce, let's say, 1,000 PhDs a year in AI and machine learning. We have to invest 2 to 3,000 crores in giving grants for doing research and encouraging startups in this particular area. And that will make us a big player. Today, Sunil, I read an article by the French who say that the Americans or Chinese are going to dominate the world. Europe is left behind, and this is a civilizational matter, and we have to invest. They're very concerned. We should be concerned too. I would like New Delhi to do that. The second, in biotechnology, we have some very fabulous companies. With Ayushman Bharat, we'll have the largest quantum of data on the human condition anywhere in the world. Applying AI machine learning to this kind of data and funding research on a big way, we can change the paradigm and do many things else. You're doing it. Chris Gopalkrishnan is doing it for brain research. A lot of people are doing it. Sunil, what we need is about, let's say, 10,000 crores on research in AI, machine learning, biotechnology every year for the next 10 years, Sunil. And somebody like you leading that effort, we will change the world.
Sanjay, where do you think is the role and room for geopolitics in all this now? Because we've seen countries becoming hyper national. Nationalistic sense has become like the prime driver now. My citizens first, my country first, my economy first. My people should get the vaccine first. So this is going on over and over again. And it's not really started with the vaccine. This is going on over the last few years. Now, as we talk of India becoming self-dependent, but a part of the global value chain, where do you see geopolitics in this? How do you see it getting impacted?
Well, I hope this too shall pass, because I believe we are one species. We may look different, we may have different colors, whatever, but we are one species, and I hope that we can come together, because that's the only way it will work, right? We have to work for each other. We have to make the world a better place. We have to leave the world a better place for our children. And while it might suit certain political parties or political leaders, I think at the end of the day, it is going to be a far more liberal world, a far closer world than anything else, because technology is bringing all of us closer. And I don't think this will last for too long. My personal view.
Thank you. Thank you. Ranga, do you think there is a role for associations, industry associations, and the like that we're sitting in right now? AIMA, CII, FICCI, and the like. What do you think happens to them in this new changing world? What do you think is the transformation of their role that they need to do?
I think the big transformation come technology is a big leveler. Earlier, we physically meet. Now you look at that, we are able to, the number of people who are attending this conference itself is a big example.
Yep.
I think that way, I think we can reach it any nook and corner of the country, and specialized education to every segment you can reach. Earlier, we need to macro levels, what kind of a crowd I can get. I think even if you have a 15 people crowd, you can educate them kind of thing, subsector wise. I think the association need to transform themselves, getting into micro level, segment level kind of this thing, getting into and giving them the right input. Then a macro level input kind of this thing will go a long way. That will make them far more successful, is my viewpoint. Another one, I think, our AIMA kind of association can do is the personal transformation, because anything that somebody has to do, I think personal transformation is the beginning of that. The association need to emphasize that and bring in greater amount of emphasis for that and educating that. I think that will go a long way. Then the business transformation can automatically happen, is my viewpoint.
Wonderful. Thank you. On that wonderful note, I want to say thank you to all of you. And I shall try and summarize only in saying the real role is in transforming individuals, getting leaders to demonstrate leadership, to demonstrate empathy, to demonstrate the values which truly matter eventually to people and therefore to the world. The moment you start doing this, many of the other things we are talking about automatically begin to fall into place. Technology will become a driver for us, not drive us, but something that we will use as a tool to meet our own objectives. And our objectives get defined much better, much sharper when we look at this in the right light and in the right manner. So thank you all for a wonderful and a very interesting and a lively conversation on why India needs to focus on becoming self-reliant and why it will not be isolationist, but it will be in India's interest and in the world's interest to encourage India to get to the place that we are attempting to. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And good evening.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Wonderful work, Sunil.